everybody. Welcome in. It is the Wrestling Mat. It's a Friday. Starting a little early for the members today here at 10 a.m. Eastern. As I kind of noted, I have to do yesterday. Got some traveling to do. Got some family stuff to do. That's important. So knocking this out early for the members at 10 a.m. Eastern on a Friday morning. Everybody else getting this later on in the day, 5 p.m. Eastern. Wherever you get your podcasts, subscribe right now. Rate, review, subscribe. Also, make sure you are subscribed here to the WrestlingMatchShow.com so you don't miss anything, don't miss announcements or when shows are hitting. We'll have some more stuff coming out next week. But if you want to become a member so you do get this live and all the other perks, head on over to the WrestlingMatchShow.com. Hit the join button down below. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have you as a member. I can tell you a member-exclusive video coming out next week, in addition to getting the show first and before everyone else. You're going to be getting my NXT prospect rankings for the month of November. Going to be doing these monthly. That will be a member-only video coming out next week. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do something for the members as it relates to celebrating the history of Survivor Series. I may do kind of a retrospective like I did with Brett and Owen on the Deadly Games tournament. That's where I'm leaning right now. So I had done those in the past where I taped them, with nobody here live, but I would definitely I will probably do that one live for members. That's my loose plan right now. We'll get those out there ahead of Survivor Series, and obviously a Full Gear next week as well. So a lot to talk about there. And if you didn't check out yesterday's episode, it's available for everybody now. I went to Dynamite on Wednesday. An easy drive from my house, literally less than 10 minutes away. So I went over to the show, talked about all my experiences there. So they did a nice... Very nice rating. I know they were happy about that. Very good demo. Star power-filled show. Does carry that as they head into Full Gear and everything that's going on there. And I saw Tony post, I guess, last night that the November Rain video celebrating AEW's November to Remember is coming out on Saturday. Speaking of that, had an entire discussion on the use of ECW, the legacy of ECW, who gets to carry that on, who's gatekeeping that. I saw a picture with Bubba and Heyman, and I think they were, I don't know if they were flipping it off or whatever, but, or he put the middle finger emoji. Like, we got your November Rain right here. It's like, okay. Sure. It's weird when that stuff gets like oddly personal. I don't know. Anyway, go check out those episodes. I really like doing that ECW kind of where it stands in 2024 with both NXT and AEW using some of that AEW, that NXT, that ECW nostalgia to promote their brands. I don't have a problem with either side doing it. I thought NXT found the right mix of it. I have said, that there is a celebration of wrestling and what we love about it. And that's not stealing from ECW. Nobody has rights. Like, the ECW is owned by $1 billion corporation who had nothing really to do with building ECW. They just happened to own it in the end. Doesn't mean that they get to carry on the legacy exclusively. That's all I'm saying. We all should celebrate wrestling that we like. And if we can afford, as a wrestling fan, to pay for Guns N' Roses and put that on our wrestling show to celebrate nostalgia, hell, that's awesome too. B. May says, if you had to recommend one ECW pay-per-view, what would it be? The first one. I'll ask you this, buddy. Like, have you not watched them? If you haven't really watched any ECW pay-per-views, just watch the first one. Go from there. I would also tell you, B. May, to watch the Rise and Fall of ECW documentary. While it is a WWE product, It is pretty well done. It tells the correct story. This is not a rise and fall of WCW, watching Kevin Nash throw Rey Mysterio into the side of the trailer a million times, and the ratings went like this, and they went like this, and WCW is just using old WWF. Like, it's not that. It's not rewriting history to that level. They get the right voices in it. I don't know. I think it's up on Peacock. I'm sure it's available somewhere. I remember I bought the DVD. That DVD, the sales it did led to ECW coming back as a brand. That is 100% the truth. That story's been told. They realized they still had a valuable commodity that had only been out of business, technically, for about 4 years. 3 years, whatever it was, and they did One Night Stand and One Night Stand again, and then they brought the brand back and all that stuff. I was born in 96, so I missed the wave. All I know is the retrospectives from docs and things like that, but that's the one brand I never dive into. I would guess, B-May, from talking to you, I think you would enjoy it. Yeah, I would dive in on their first pay-per-view and kind of go from there. I would also tell you that, like, some feuds that are worth seeking out: Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome, Tommy Dreamer and Raven, Tommy Dreamer and Sandman. I would look around the time when RVD showed up on Raw and then became kind of this outsider in ECW. Later on, I talk about, because you're 96, I'm 85, but I didn't have a hell of a lot of access to ECW. And Rob, who's in the chat right now, him and I kind of picked up on it together. We were watching Raw and Nitro and all that stuff, and I had seen ECW late night on Madison Square Garden TV, MSG TV. I know it was on the Sunshine Network. It was on, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and you'd hear about it. But it wasn't like readily available to watch. So when it went on TNN, that's when I fully got into ECW because it was available to me. Now, I've since gone back and watched, everything. But I jumped in, and I think about, it's a great example, B-May, of what ECW was as a whole. Rob just brought up Sabu. Obviously, there's, Sabu and Taz and all that, and tables. But, like, I go back to Jerry Lynn and RVD. I go back to Jiri and Super Crazy and Little Guido having three-way dances to open up the show. Not about weapons, just about great wrestling. You can go back, B-May, and watch Rey Mysterio before he's in, WCW. He's in ACW. That was what Heyman was trying to do. He was trying to bring in what wrestling was to him and what it was evolving into. Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero. Go find that match. Holy hell. And here's the thing. That crowd who gets categorized as bloodthirsty or whatever, that crowd was also super into Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko having a classic in the ring. They were into Jerry Lynn and RVD putting on a match that nobody else could do at the time. They were into three guys who you would call junior heavyweights or cruiserweights, ripping it up. It was a great, at times, snapshot of what wrestling was and what it was going to be, I guess I would say. And at other times, it was very much, okay, this is what ECW is. And they went grossly, at times, into the sexual stuff and things like that. And, it ain't all pretty. It ain't all great. And there's some stuff that doesn't stand up the test of time. Rob said the attendance for, Barely Legal was 1,170. Sure. They almost lost the pay-per-view feed. That's a whole story. But yeah, those are some stories. I would look up what Mick Foley, what Cactus Jack did in ECW, especially as he transitions from ECW to WCW. Cuts a promo about his son because of what the family said. Or not what the crowd said about his own family. Like there's really good stuff there. B-May says, I'm going to definitely take it start the deep dive. I've always wanted to watch Terry Funk just because of how well he was respected. Oh, my God. Well, first pay-per-view will help you out with that. Terry Funk, I don't think I understood this for a long time. Not that I was ever anti or didn't think Terry Funk was good. But when he passed, and people said that's the greatest of all time. And I understand that perspective more now because I look back on Terry Funk's career and say he understood it. He understood what wrestling was, is, and was becoming, no matter what his age was. And he knew that until the day he died. Terry Funk's career is the journey that you can take to see the evolution of pro wrestling, because he never shied away from it. Wrestling in Japan, wrestling with his brother, wrestling Ric Flair, battling for championships. But as a guy who had matches in the ring, sure, he was brutal, but that hardcore stuff, I'm sure, hell, you could probably throw me in this category, even though if I didn't really realize at the time. The first time I really watched and got to see Terry Funk being an actual story, what's my first memory? And this is going to sound almost like blasphemous. It's Chainsaw Charlie. Now I knew who Terry Funk was, but in terms of going, oh, cool, it was Chainsaw Charlie. It was stuff with Mick Foley going into WrestleMania 14. And then, I remember years before that, so that would have been WrestleMania 14 is what? 80, 96, 97? 98. 98. 14 is 98. So that's the dumpster match and stuff. But I remember being at a friend's house growing up. And I don't know why, because we were big wrestling fans. He lived next door to me. And he always got the stuff before everybody else did, video games. And I remember he had, this is so random, NBA Jam Tournament Edition the night before it came out, because his parents just bought him all the video games and stuff like that all the time. And he got the game before it came out. Anyway, this is the kind of person I lived next to. And I remember him showing me the Cactus Jack, Terry Funk, Exploding Ring, Explosions, all that stuff. I remember him showing me that. And my mind was blown. I was probably 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, somewhere around there when I saw that. My friend showed it to me. What the hell? This is. And then I would see Terry Funk beat Chainsaw Charlie a couple years later, and then I learned more about him. But I think he's a great person to really track where wrestling goes over about a 50-year span. And also, as Rob brought up, Beyond the Mat, you get Terry Funk's retirement. You get, which obviously didn't stand. They're backstage at that, Barely Legal pay-per-view. They're there. You get the famous Heyman speech, which I think Francine literally talked about, in the last week when they were at the ECW arena. So yeah, that's all captured. But there you go. 15 minutes into the show, I'm talking about ECW and plenty more to get to if I really wanted to. So yeah, dive in, celebrate it, enjoy it. Everybody should be able to do that. I'll continue to say that. But check out that episode if you didn't. I really did a bit of a dive into the legacy of ECW and why it's still getting used today by multiple companies, and who should be able to do that. B-May, keep an eye out for a young Tony Khan in the crowd as you're watching those shows. If you want to know how he came up as a wrestling fan. So I said on these Fridays, I wanted to do not a who's the top 5 wrestlers of the week. I mean, would it click well? Sure, probably, but that's boring. I want to do each week. We did a little of this last week, but more so now. The most interesting wrestlers of the week. This is not about who main evented and came through. And there are going to be probably people that I bring up here that were in the main event or whatever. This is who made you pay attention. Who made you pay attention in a wrestling landscape that has never put out more content before? Just the world of pro wrestling. There is always something going on. Promote it. Like, that's why I always say it's the best time to be a wrestling fan. Everybody is trying to get your money. Everybody is trying to get your attention. They want your eyeballs. They want your engagement. From the top of the mountain, 2 biggest companies, AEW and WWE, to TNA, to New Japan, to Indies, to you name it. They're trying to get your attention. I said this, good God, when AEW started years ago. I said it on the radio. I'll say it again, and it maybe rings more true now than ever before. Wrestling fans shouldn't be fighting over wrestling companies, because wrestling companies are fighting over you. You are the consumer. A ratings win means nothing to you. It shouldn't. It shouldn't be a ha-ha or a we want like that. They're all battling to get your attention. You don't have to defend them. You don't have to be on the team. Sure, if you're a fan of just one company or just one, that's fine. You're not on the team. I promise you. It's not how it goes. They want you as a customer, just like anything else. How do we get you as a customer? If an NBA team stinks, right? They still need to fill that arena with gimmicks and stuff and they will try to do that. They still are trying to entertain you. They are still trying to get your money because it is a business. And that's the right thing to do. But let those wrestling companies fight over you. There's no reason for fans to take up those causes. Anyway, most interesting wrestlers of the week. I say all this stuff's going on and they're trying to catch your eyeballs, but who is? What did catch your eyeball this week? What caught your ear? Who did a promo? Who had a segment? Who had a pre-tape? Who had a vignette? Who had a tweet? Who had an Instagram post? Who had a match that made you pay attention? That made you say, damn, that was good. Or, ooh, I'm more invested in that now. Because the goal of pro wrestling, in addition to obviously getting your money and entertaining and getting the eyeballs, is if we're building to something, a pay-per-view, a match, the match is next week, the match is in 2 weeks, the match is at the pay-per-view, Full Gear next week, Survivor Series at the end of the month. Did we take a step forward this week? Did our story get people more invested? And that is not the goal of every week of pro wrestling and every story. Some take steps forward, some maintain, some take big steps. It's the ebbs and flows of an angle. If everything was big, nothing would be big. So you have your shows that have a big thing, big angle, big turn, big talking point. Your Death Riders taking out Bryan Danielson. Your Bloodline coming back together. Mariah May turning on Toni Storm. Big swings. Big whoa. And then you'll have your moments of, hey, we got 3.5 weeks to the pay-per-view. This is a mid-card feud. They get a video package this week. And that's okay, too. And sometimes that's schedule. Sometimes that's, hey, this is what fits into the show this week in terms of importance. Sometimes that's just the nature of it. So as we look at everything going on this week, where stories are going, AEW, next weekend we'll have Full Gear. WWE building to Survivor Series. Saturday night's main event. Deadline. Into the new year. AEW World's there's things that are being built for now, for next week, for whatever. So as you look at the landscape just this week, what grabbed your attention the most? What made you say, gotta watch more of that next week? Man, I really want to see where they're going with this. Like Bronson Reed, and I'm not going to say this week because I don't think this week was anything unreal, but Bronson Reed has captured me more than he ever has before based on the presentation they've put out there for him with Braun and Seth Rollins, and he makes you pay attention. It's the most interesting he's ever been. His wrestling is still the same. Always a very good big man worker, but now I'm more interested in him. Now I care more about him. Now I have more to sink my teeth into with him. He has stood out in the last month. But in terms of the last week, if we'll go chronologically, it's just easier. On Raw, and it's been multiple weeks of this, I probably haven't talked about this enough. The New Day story is fantastic. The 10 years of what that group has done is truly historic. Factions don't stay together like that. Factions don't stay together like that. And also somehow, and believably so, haven't had a hint of a breakup or issues within the group until about a month and a half ago. Maybe 2 months ago. But in the big picture, a sliver of what their careers have been. So now you're getting to see the fruits of exploring Trouble in Paradise, pardon the pun, with Kofi and Woods after 10 years. And I understand why people are like, New Day's run out of stuff to do, or they've been tag champs. What else is there to do? And people have called for the breakup. It's got to happen, or can't wait for E to come back, and who knows about that? I would love that. I hope whatever he wants to do, and if that means a return to in-ring action, full-time, part-time, one match, no match, I would like my friend to be happy. And I don't know what's going to happen. And it's not my business. But all of a sudden, New Day has gone from, hey, it's a New Day, we like their music, pop. They can spin their wheels at times, and maybe it has been, 10 years. There's not much else to do. And now all of a sudden, because they've never touched anywhere near what a breakup would be, or, bloodline. They've broken up. They had issues when they were together, all that stuff. Judgment Day has gone through that. God, the NWO went through that. The Horsemen had different members. You look back in history, DX went from Shawn and Rick Rude and Chyna and Triple H, and Jason Sensation, and then it turns into Shawn and the Outlaws and X-Pac and China, and it breaks up again. They come back to get, they go through all that stuff. But there has been no question the New Day have been united. On camera, off camera, appearances, you name it. One for all and all for one. That is the New Day. They've all had their moments individually, some more than others. They've had their moments collectively, and they've taken care of each other. And you've always felt that bond, because I'm not breaking any ground here. It's as real as it gets. I think the reason they've been together for 10 years is, A, I don't think they want to break up, and B, I don't think anybody. It would have been a hard sell at times to go, no, there's too much love and chemistry and brotherhood and friendship between those guys, which is why what's happening now has me paying attention, has me interested. You're watching frustrations that, in canon and kayfabe makes sense. Hey, we're not where we want to be. We're not happy. We're not going to play the trombone. No, I'm not doing that, Kofi. I have always been a big believer in Xavier Woods and his talents and his brain. And, if I was starting a wrestling company, he would be among my hires, not just in ring. I want his creative brain. I want his wrestling brain. I want his out-of-the-box thinking that, believe me, he has tried to push things through that did get through or didn't get through. He's never going to be boring. He's never going to rest on his success. And he's had a hell of a career, and he's made a bunch of money, and he's been able to support his family and up, down, down, and video games and G4 and being on Wheel, like all that stuff. But it's still, there's no rest for him. I got to learn how to play bass guitar, whatever it might be. So to know that he's had all that success in kayfabe with championships and accolades and all that, but also in real life because of what he's done, I think there is a real sense of frustration, professional, not bitter, not angry, just what's the next thing I can do? It's not that it hasn't been good enough, but I still want more. I still have that hunger. I still have that drive. Sorry about the lyrics there that I stole from the guy who wears the weird blue jackets now and peas in bottles on movie sets. So now we have gotten to see Woods flex his depth a little bit. I don't know if I would do the turn. That's a big move. I don't know if it's bringing them back together. Because my whole thing with that is it's a nice moment in the moment, but then what? In 2 months, we'll be back to, hey, it's New Day. We love them, but they're not really doing much. I like their music. I like their entrance. I like who they are, but I'm not super invested in them because what are they battling for? Whereas if you have that night on Raw, what is it, a couple weeks away, whatever it is, next week? If you have that night have tension and who are we and coming out, you could bring them back together. He can heal their wounds. You could do something, and this is complete fantasy booking, and I don't know about medical. You could do something where he gets beat up by Woods. I know people think maybe Kofi will turn. If someone turned on the group, if they had their Seth Rollins Shield moment, if I had to pick someone and it had to be done, it would be Woods. It's not even a question. I think there is a hell of a heel, a really smart heel, a heel who knows way more than people give him credit for. A heel who goes, yeah, I've been successful for 10 plus years with two other people by my side. Think of how good I could be on my own when I don't have to worry about two other, I think he'd give you a lot. I always have felt, even though he's been a staple of WWE programming, in the ring, Monday, Tuesday, YouTube, up, down, whatever. I still don't think that Xavier Woods has been even close to used at his full potential. And there is part of me that wants to see that. That's fresh. That's new. Maybe there is an element where you don't break them up. You don't do the obvious. But you do have E there, and you have them have that conversation. And it's not about turning on Kofi or turning on E. It's Woods maybe coming to that realization of, hey, I love you guys and I'll love you forever. But this just doesn't, it's not working right now. I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. And I'm not going to drag you two guys down with me. I got to go figure this out. And that's not the breakup. That is stepping away. Because it leaves the door open for what should be and would be a great reunion down the road and a Hall of Fame induction and all that stuff. But if Woods went on his own little journey, that he has to step away from New Day. Maybe I'll be back someday. I got to go. I got to know. I got to know. Is there more out there for me? I can't live with that regret. I think that's more interesting because I do fear there would be some backlash and some people who wouldn't believe that Woods would turn on E or Kofi. I don't know. That's a hard plane to land, to get that right. Because then you got to push Woods. Then you got to make sure there's things for him. And the idea would be he'd be a pretty big heel. I don't know if people want that. But if it was more of a self-reflection story, hey, you know what? It's not working for us right now. I don't hate you guys, but I don't want to drag this down further. So I need some time to go figure things out. I promise you, Woods could sink his teeth into that. He could flex his depth. He could flex his acting muscle. He could flex a brain that works at a different level than most people. I think a lot of this has been on display, but if you haven't picked up on that, I'm lucky to know the guy and worked with the guy and was friends with the guy and got inside his brain and loved having conversation. This is a guy who goes, okay, I'm going to be on Watch Longer. We got to do this. Like, it wasn't just that it's an appearance, I'll show up. No, it's like, hey, we could do this. Oh, okay, cool. I'm on Watch Long. All of a sudden, we're starting a feud between the Bump and New Day or an up, down, whatever the hell it was. We played into that. And I've said all the time, I give those guys all the credit in the world for basically giving me visibility, giving me credibility. They did it with Tom Phillips. They did it with Mike Rome. They did it with Michael Cole in those sit-down interviews. Cole didn't need it, but, that you get to play along. People still remember Young Boy Tom because of Big E. Second screen, all that. Like, they wanted to play along. Woods is always a big part of that. He'd always make the most of whatever he's doing. Let me throw myself into this as much as I possibly can. And I think he could do that with this. And I think he's always been that kind of guy. So I'm interested because it can go a few different ways. But they have kept a really good tone with the story. One thing I wanted to tell you about. I can put it up here. Let me see if I can put it up because I want to show you this. Because I want to show you the current. I talk about the currency of Twitter, right? And some people, I talk about Kevin Owens doesn't post stuff too often, things like that. So when he does, you pay attention. Some people just post random stuff. Woods is admittedly in the social game a bit all over the place. You get, Austin. You get Xavier. You get a little, but it's him. But I want to go to this tweet. I'm gonna share it with you guys here for a second if I can do this, because I want to show you how simple it is to get something over or get your point across simply by the economy of words. So here you go. I want to show you this tweet. I'll make it full screen there. Here we go. So I'll make this bigger. There we go. How's that? Okay. If you could see it there, and I know people are listening on podcasts. So it says, USA Network put up this tweet November 12th. And very simple. Roman Reigns was running out of titles 3 years ago, so he added a crown to his collection. I'll bring that tweet up and show you. So when he beat Woods or whatever and took the crown, and that was the king of the ring and the gimmick and the winning of it just getting sacrificed to add more heat to Roman. And Woods' king of the ring reign didn't go the way he wanted. So you see the response here from Xavier Woods. He looks at a tweet that's talking about 3 years ago. And he looks at this tweet, and it has nothing to do with what he's currently doing right now. And he goes, hold on. I can connect this. I can make it work. I could put in a little extra effort. What does he do? He quote tweets it. He puts his own clip up of him blowing off Jey Uso and says, not a crown, it was my crown, something I worked my entire life to get, and the bloodline destroyed it. But I'm the bad guy for not shaking Jay's hand that one time. Got it. I think, I mean, people should know this, but the USA Network Twitter accounts, like, they're not in on it. They don't necessarily know what's going on. They just put that up. Woods grabbed that and said, hold on. I can add a layer to my story. I feel pretty confident saying he just did that on his own. He doesn't need to get approval for something like that. But he just took a tweet that is just a random engagement tweet of Roman from the USA Network account, whatever, just promoting the brand. Here's something we could put up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he made something of it. He referenced how that time in his life and his career should have been great, and it was taken away from him by that version of the bloodline. And yet, he gets villainized for not shaking the hand of Jey Uso. And in that tweet, in the matter of 2.5 sentences, he furthered his story. He told you more about his motivation. He told you more about his thought process. He told you that what happened 3 years ago matters, still matters, and still bothers him. Wrestling moves fast, right? There's no off season. Companies put on multiple shows a week. It's easy to get lost in that stuff. That was always Vince's mentality. Oh, they'll forget about it, pal. Sure. But you could also use your grand, illustrious, long, easily visible history to your advantage. That's happening all over stories right now, as it should. Paul Heyman's lying about it being the third inning and all that stuff. Oh, that means we have 6 more innings to go. Yeah, but if you look around, the bloodline's tentacles have had lasting effects on a lot of people. I saw people saying that Woods, Drew McIntyre, and KO should form their own We Were Right alliance, whatever. But what do those 3 guys have in common? 3 guys who have been beloved by the fans. Sure, Kevin's been up and down, but people want to like Kevin Owens. Drew was the biggest star in the company for a time. Woods has been a WWE superstar at a pretty damn high level for 10 years. But what did they all run into? The bloodline, Roman Reigns. His iron ruling, iron fist, whatever the hell you want to call it. They've all been affected by that. So when they see people now celebrating it, going back, taking the side of someone who has really given them no strong reasons other than his words to take up his cause, to go back with him. That's the damage that has been done. And Woods is using that for now because it does make sense to be part of the story. So my point is, he added to his story by quote tweeting a network Twitter account. I learned more about why he's upset because of that. And when I see him and you see the frustration on Raw, guess what? He's now let us in a little bit more. He took advantage of a situation that not in a WWE-produced promo or social media thing or a Raw sec. No. He added to that story on his own and has given you more of why he thinks the way he does. And now maybe you believe him more. I throw Sami Zayn into that conversation. What Sami is doing for the first time in a while, I would say, is not defensible. Something, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Something feels wrong about Sami getting treated like dirt, getting put in a position where he had to take out his friend, all of that emotion. To know how it ended. To know that he ended up, on the right side and with Kevin and all that. And then to now see that he is going back to all this. He admitted, we were all in those corners. It felt good. It's not typical for Sammy's character to chase that high. That's not typically what he does. That fame, it's to chase it knowing that it might be wrong. Just tell that it is wrong. To not, I'm not saying ignore, but to not take into account enough of the feelings he felt as a character. People love the fact that those four guys put those ones up and are going to be on War Games this week, or, in a couple weeks. And who's the fifth member going to be in all that? Jay, I get. Jimmy, I get. I think they've sped that up probably a little bit too much. I think there should have been a little bit more back and forth of Roman having to win everybody back over. I think they've gone a little fast with that, admittedly. Sammy especially. And that's also part of me going like, man, it feels like Sammy should be smarter than this to not get sucked back up into it. And that's interesting to me because it goes back to Kevin, who also remains pretty much a standard on this list of most interesting wrestlers. And people have put that together, much like I did, a while ago, of we could easily get another really heavy chapter of Sammy and Kevin based on Sammy walking back in here and even admitting, even showing that trepidation on his face, but still going along with it. Still going along with standing beside Roman Reigns. And I said it might come down to the idea of I'm there to protect Jay. And I thought they would play into that somehow with a couple different people. Maybe Seth will step in there. Maybe that will come back around. But there's something that doesn't feel totally right about the Sami Zayn we have seen since Royal Rumble of last year. What an angle. Something feels wrong about him going backwards. Something feels off about that. Why would the Sami Zayn that we saw get out from that, nearly beat Roman for the title, main event WrestleMania, be the only one to take down Gunther until Cody's useless win a couple of weeks ago? Everything he did after that, and yet he's going back to it, and for what? I like that. I like that it's not super obvious. A couple of responses here. B-May says, really been impressed with Solo the past couple weeks. I think he's getting better on the mic, and I like how he's starting to feel comfortable shit-talking Roman. I agree completely. And I'd throw this in there as well. I said they had to be presented in a way where it felt like they were credible opponents, credible foils for Roman and company. Roman couldn't take them all out. It couldn't be the old Roman of most times standing tall. Maybe he takes, a finish going into pay-per-view, but we know he's going to win. And, the dominance is there. But when you come back as a babyface and you come back, mostly by yourself, sure, he's picked up now more help along the way, but sometimes you got to take those beatdowns. It's fine. It's just not what we were typically used to seeing from Roman. And he's been laid out multiple times, and then Solo pinned him. And I said I wasn't a super fan of that because it got washed away fairly quickly with Sammy's stuff. And, I didn't like that Roman and Gunther lost on the same show. And those losses should have been massive, and they're footnotes. And I don't want to hear like, well, good, you kind of hide a loss that way. No. Sometimes, yes, you got to find your way to creatively beat somebody. I get that. But those losses are gold. They don't happen. They are perfect to further and tell stories. And we didn't get that. As Rob said, but the ring, the ring, which will never. Where is that? Where do you think Cody's ring is right now? Where do you think Liv's is right now? Did they make a space for it in their house? Is Cody going to wear it to the Mania press conference or whatever? Is he going to wear it on College game day this week? I highly doubt that. So great. Something that he won is Saudi Arabian sports washed away until, I don't know, we're supposed to care about it for the new yearly tradition. And that's why Gunther lost. That one bothers me more. The solo one, I would have given it more spotlight. But I asked B-May this, I ask anybody, has that helped your view of Solo at all? And you might go, no, I just like that he's talking better. I think he's got better presence. That might be enough. But I'm saying, if you show that the guy can beat Roman months after he pinned Cody Rhodes, so think about that. A year after he pinned John Cena. If that win helped at all, then add it to the pile. I would also throw in Jacob Fatu, the I love you, and they had like a whatever town they were in, like they had a shirt that said like I love you Syracuse or wherever the hell they were at. Like that's getting over. You got to be careful with that. And people might go, hey, if it's over, it's over. Who cares? Babyface heel. But he's also supposed to be a killer. That's becoming a bit funny. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing because I do go back to those wonderful times, the Bloodline and Sammy, and it becoming this 25-minute comedy show of can he make everybody cry? That is fun. We will look back on that. It's why the breakup mattered more because that's where they had gotten to. He had won them over. Being charming, ridiculous, funny, annoying Sami Zayn. But the Solo thing it was like almost this blind love, but I think it's almost being leaned into a little too much now. You just don't want it to be too goofy. But I agree. I think Solo's been a much more comfortable shit talker. I think he's coming to the role more. And like I said, when this all started, he just never did that before. I didn't feel like he was failing because the effort wasn't being put in. It wasn't clicking because you're asking, once again, like think about this. I'm trying to give you another example of who like didn't talk and then all of a sudden, like, who would that be? Let me get a. Who was a silent assassin that eventually got worked in slowly? Here's an example of how to do it the right way. Kevin Nash was Vinny Vegas, and he was Oz and all that crap, right? And Sean finds him and sees him, and he becomes Sean's heater. And he doesn't talk. This is it. Playing with his glove and pulling the glove and looking mean and looking tough and not saying much. And eventually starts to wrestle, and okay, Diesel's a thing, and okay, now he's talking back a little bit, but it took time. They added that. They never added that to Solo. He barely talked. As I said, he told me that was kind of the idea. Just I don't talk much. All right, but then you go from not talking much to being the mouthpiece of the follow-up to the biggest story the company's done in 20-something years. One of the biggest stories of all time. All right, Solo, here's the mic. Keep carrying it, even though you've never done this before. Even though we never have you talk in more than a sentence. So now, as we sit here, 7 months after he really kind of took this role on? Yeah, he's starting to find himself now. I'm sure he's getting help. as he should. And he is an all ears kind of guy. So, yeah, I'm with you on Solo. That's why I said, hey, with all the stuff going on and maybe building to Cody Rock or Rock Roman or whatever the hell, Roman Cody 3, whatever it might be. The Rock is going to go away again. You're putting a lot of time and effort into this new version of the Bloodline. There's something here with Jacob Fatu. And there's always been something here with Solo. I just don't want them to lose that in like a year. Where is Solo Sikoa at in a year? Maybe it's a whole big Bloodline, showdown and everybody's involved in Mania. Okay, fine. Where is he in 1 year? Where is he at SummerSlam next year? Because there should be that plan. B-May says also Braun and Sheamus got me hyped. Yeah, you know what? You get the one thing about Sheamus, never a lack of effort. He lives with a chip on his shoulder. He wants to go out there and have that match that is better than anything else on the show, and we'll put that effort in. Hey, if you're not going to give me, you go watch him on that post show. Like, there is frustration in that guy when he sees other people getting opportunities. He wants. It's not a mean thing. It's a good competitiveness about him. But you can hear it something. Oh, they're doing that. So when he gets something to sink his teeth into, and I know I've been using that phrase far too often, you get the matches he puts on. Probably, I would say, one of the best television wrestlers of the last decade plus. And I mean that in a way where I say, sure, he's gotten big stories. But other times he hasn't, lower card, lower mid-card stuff. And it's just about, it's not about the promos, it's not about the characters. That stuff happens, but, he's going to settle his stuff in the ring. He's one of those guys that when he gets in there, I always go, I'm going to see something good. He's not going to sleepwalk through this one. He's not going to go, we know what we're doing here for 10 minutes. We'll go give him that. No, he doesn't have that in him. And like I said, I think he's one of the most consistent TV wrestlers out there. There's some people that can float in and out and take up the ring and deliver consistently because they know how to do that. I put Orange Cassidy in that category. I put Sheamus in that category. I put Seth Rollins in that category. Who else would I put in that category? Sami Zayn I put in that category. Kevin Owens I put in that category. Reliable. A couple other ones. NXT, I keep coming back to Jada Parker. I know I talked about her last week. I thought she's just such a comfortable, strong promo. And I will tell you, I will definitely be talking about her next week on my first NXT prospect rankings. You can guarantee that. That's going to happen. But I don't think I have a ton from NXT this week. But there's a lot of good going on there, especially with the women, as I've talked about a lot. Not a lot of big follow-ups this past week. Moving to Dynamite, I said this months ago. We're seeing it come into development a bit more. I think there's big money in Kyle Fletcher. I think there was, as we saw early stages of, but I think he looks like he's grown up 5 to 10 years by going away from, a flashy, more, what'd I say? He dressed like a guy who's going to have a good match. I don't know how else I could describe it. Like, hey, my gear will look good when I'm doing all the moves kind of thing. And he's not just been about that, but, It was more about that big flashy presentation and the bleach blonde hair. It was a younger look, and not a bad way. And when he shaved his head and just went real simple, hey, shave my head. I look older. You know what else he does? He looks taller now because he dressed like everybody else who's like 5'7" to 6 foot. He had, here's my flashy pants and it'll work good with this, and like Ospreay does, and it works for Ospreay. It's what his gimmick is. He's a baby. He dresses like a babyface. Kyle dressed like a babyface. He had a babyface look. He shaves that head. He changes to trunks, and you realize he's a big dude. Like he dressed small. Is that the best way I could say it? His look made him look smaller. He's a very big guy. When I saw him the other night in person, I knew he was big, but the shaving of the head and going to the trunks, and it just is a more serious tone. And he's still working his way through things, but it's there. It is absolutely there. And I'm happy he's getting the promo time. It isn't, it's not all perfect, but it's, like I said, it's the same thing with like Solo. Hey, you got to get that time to learn it and figure it out. He is someone you can see it in. And I love that he got the opportunity on his own this week without Callis. I want to put Brody King in here. I talked about him a little yesterday. As I joked, I said, God, I was in the same vicinity as him for at least a half hour, and he was on his phone doing stuff, and we have never had a conversation, so I don't know him. And I thought, I was like, I should have talked to him. Like, I should have said, just whatever. Because I am such a fan of him. And I know certain people appreciate, fans say it, they say thank you, whatever. There is something to, you hear it from somebody who's been around. I think, I like, that when if fans or anybody say, hey, thanks, you did a great job, I love this, like that connects with me in a one way. When you hear that praise from someone who's in the industry or a peer or, that's a different kind of praise. You take that in differently. And I liked getting that from people within the industry. And it was different getting it from fans because they're going to say, people in the industry will pick out something different than people that maybe a fan would. I'm still happy to make both sides entertain or interested or telling me I'm doing a good job. But, there is something to wrestlers getting that praise too. Anyway, he main evented Dynamite against FTR, and that's four guys who know what the hell they're doing in there. And Brody and I thought this last year. I thought it before the C2 last year, but especially there it is. It's funny. I think everybody always falls back on, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And there's this guy, and, if he just got a chance, if he really got a chance to showcase himself, he really kind of got out to be on his own. If he just got into G1 and got to have a good 2 or 3 weeks and wrestle people, man, he really get to stand out, and man, he would turn heads. It is like this weird fantasy booking crutch that I have used that I don't think is, but I wish I could see him in a G1. Or there was always that dream scenario. If it wasn't in WWE, man, he could be in the G1. Man, Cesaro. The G1, a dream I still have, by the way. When Eddie Kingston went and did it, oh my God, if Danielson could get in the G1, if Chad Gable could get in the G1, oh man, he would rip it up. But when Eddie did it, and then he wins the C2, it made sense. He got to go do that. And then, and they have the tags in between. You end up with different tag partners and stuff like that. And then Takeshita did it this year. And now, he's on a New Japan show coming up and defending the international title. He's wrestling Ricochet next week. There's something to that. And Brody King got that last year with the C2. And then he got a little time with that Darby Open challenge. And I saw a door that was wide open. And look, they were going somewhere else at Darby. It wasn't the right time to do that. I understand that. But I continue to be impressed by Brody King, and he is another one, and I intentionally waited to say this, who is a hell of a TV wrestler, who makes you take notice, who is catching the crowd's attention, who is getting them to do who call. It's not cheesy. Like, they're paying attention. He can do that because they care. He's connected with them. That's a guy I want to push. That's a guy who passes the airport test. Who is that guy? He's also a lovely human being. Married, kid. You're not going to worry about him. Does that make sense? He's going to be, even though he looks scary and all that stuff, he's a good dude who is going to represent the company well. Who's going to give you a different look of someone who could be the face. I am a big fan of Brody King. And I thought he stood out in that match again. And I think he stands out in general. And I hope he continues to get more opportunities to shine. So a couple there from Dynamite. I will move over to, I guess, going back to SmackDown last week, just in general. And I talked about Kevin and Sammy already. So, and those are guys that still be on the list. But I was glad to see some of your responses here. Love to hear what you guys think as you're watching maybe later on in the day, because you're not a member. You can be at thewrestlingmatshow.com or down in the comments below. Who have been your most interesting wrestlers of the week? Whose stuff has stood out? I throw Damian Priest in there, by the way, as well. I thought he cut one of his better promos on Raw. And you don't see Gunther. Yeah, you never see him get beat, but you typically don't see him get handled that way on the microphone. Priest didn't do that as much his first time around when they wrestled at SummerSlam. He set a much better tone this time. I like that. I thought that was very good. So, those are my most interesting wrestlers of the week. Who were yours? Leave them in the comments below. Do you like this segment? Should we keep doing it on Fridays? Let me know. NXT Prospect Rankings coming out for members next week. I think I'm going to do that Deadly Games tournament kind of retrospective. We'll probably tape that live with members. But if there's anything else you'd like to see here, please let us know. Hit us up on social media at WrestlingMat23, at the Matt Camp. Go to ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. Go get your Wrestling Mat merch. You get a discount if you're a Wrestling Mat member. If you're a Matt member, go check that out. Members always get this show first and live every weekday. Yes, we started early today at 10 a.m. Eastern. Typically, though, 11 a.m. Eastern. Everybody else gets it at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here at thewrestlingmatshow.com. And on top of that, make sure that you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Yesterday's episode just got unlocked for everybody, so initially went up for members. Had an issue with the 5 p.m. upload, so anybody can see it now. But this episode, up normal, live for members, and there will be it'll go up again later. But you're watching this, so you know that already. So I'm telling you stuff you already know. But that'll be doing it for today. As Rob said, you know where to go. TheWrestlingMatShow.com. It's right above Todd. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will be back on Monday to talk about wrestling even more right here on the Wrestling